Hi all, welcome back to my channel. So today we will learn what is a PLSQL key. So PLSQL key is a single or combination of multiple columns in a table. In a table we have multiple columns, right? So we can define some column as key column. It is used to uniquely identify a record or rows of data from the table. Okay. So keys will help you to identify the records uniquely. Also, it is used to create relationships among different database tables and views. Okay, so with the help of keys, we can define the relationships between the tables. Now we will be going through types of PLSQL keys. So first we have primary key, then candidate key, then we have unique key, then we have composite key, super key, alternate key, and finally we will have foreign key. Okay, so we will be going through all the keys one by one along with table creation examples. Okay, so first let's go through primary key. So it is used to uniquely identify records in a table. So columns identified as primary key cannot have null values. You have to have your values. So all values are unique in primary key columns. Okay, and also a table can only have a single primary key, but in some cases you need to define more than one primary key using two or more columns. So those are called composite key. Okay, so that we will see after primary key. So here we will be focusing mainly in primary key. Okay, so let's go through an example of creating a table using primary key. So here we are creating one table goods. Okay, so you can see there are two columns, goods ID and goods name. So we have identified goods ID as primary key. So it cannot have null values and all the values in your goods ID column should be unique. Okay, so let's go to Toad and we will execute this DDL to create the table. Okay. Yeah, so let's execute this DDL. Okay, so table has been created. Now if we do just a select star just to check whether table is created or not. Okay, you can see the columns. You can see two columns. Now just do a describe of your table. Describe goods. You can see the structure of the table. Okay. So as you can see, you have two columns, you have the data types, and you can see primary key is goods ID. Okay, so there are multiple tabs. You can see the constraints, referential. Okay, so all those things. So here we are having only one primary key. Now if we want to suppose insert data into this table, so we will insert the values. Okay, since goods ID column is unique, so you can see all these are unique records. Okay, 10, 20, 30. Okay, so we have inserted 3 rows. Now if we do select star, you can see 3 rows in the table, and if you notice, goods ID column has unique values 10, 20 and 30. Suppose if we want to insert again 10, then you can see that constraint violation, right? So you cannot insert a duplicate value in a primary table. Now if you just edit 10 to 40, that is a unique value, then if you execute it, your value will be inserted. Yeah, so it's inserted. Now if you do select star from the table, you can see 4 rows. All rows are unique for goods ID column 10, 20, 30 and 40. So by this way we create primary table using primary key column. Okay. Yeah, so now let's go to candidate key. So what is a candidate key? It can be used as a primary key in a table there can be multiple candidate keys in a table and one can be selected as a primary key only. Okay, and suppose if primary key column is dropped from the table, then other columns defined as candidate key can serve as primary key. Okay, so while creating the table, if you define a primary key and if it is dropped, then you can use other key as candidate key. So let's see an example. So here we will be creating one table, merchants. Okay, so if you see in above table, merchant ID, registration number and SSN columns are candidate key. Okay, and one column, that is merchant ID column, is defined as a primary key. Suppose if merchant ID column is dropped from the table, okay, then registration number and SSN columns can serve as primary key, okay, as candidate key. So let's create this table, merchants. Okay, okay, so table has been created. Now just do a select star from merchants. You can see all the columns. Now if you do describe merchants, you can see the table structure. Okay, so here you can see you have your primary key, that is merchant ID, and your registration number and SSN, which are not null values. Those can be used as candidate key if suppose your primary column, that is merchant ID, is dropped. Okay, and you can see other tabs, constraints and so on. Okay, so by this way we create candidate key in a table. Okay, you can go through all those tabs in Toad and you can get all the information. Now let's go to unique key. So what is unique key? So it is used to identify each row uniquely in a table. Okay, and unique key allows only a single null value. In primary key you cannot have a single null value, but in here in unique key just one null value is allowed and it don't allow any duplicate values. Okay, so let's see an example. So in that same merchants table, registration number we can identify as unique key. You can see here it's not null and unique. So we cannot have two merchants with same registration number. Okay, so all registration numbers are unique. Okay, yeah, then let's go to Toad. Okay, and we will create this table. Yeah, so the table is created. Now just do a select star. You can see all the columns. Yeah, now you can do describe and you can see all the attributes. See here you can see your merchant ID column is primary key and your registration number is unique and it's not null. Okay, so we can use this registration number column as unique key. Now let's go to composite key. So it's used when two or more columns are combined to serve as a primary key to provide unique information, and a composite key cannot be null. Okay, so we need two or more columns to define a composite key. Okay, so let's take an example. Here you can see we are creating one table, goods order. Okay, so you can see customer ID, order ID and product code. So here you can see customer ID A10 is having two rows with order ID 101 and 101, but the product code is different. You can see 5001S and 8001T. So same customer can place multiple orders, right? And hence customer ID can have multiple entries. There can be third row, fourth row of same customer ID. Okay, so customer ID alone cannot become a primary key. So product code also cannot be a primary key, as more than one customer can order same product. Okay, so based on this situation, we are creating a primary key using customer ID and product code. Okay, so you can see customer ID B20 is having order ID 201 and 201, but the product code is different. Okay, so based on those two columns, we can say using composite key we are defining the uniqueness. Okay, so let's see this example. We can create this table. Okay, this is created. Now you can do describe and your table name. Here you can see all the attributes. Okay, so you can see customer ID and product code both are primary key. Okay, yeah, you can see go through all the other attributes in Toad. Yeah, now we will be going through super key. Okay, so what are super keys? Super keys are set of columns that uniquely identifies each rows in a table, and a super key is a superset of candidate key. So let's see an example. Here you can see we are creating one employees table. Okay, so the name of two employees can be same, but their employee ID cannot be same, right? So that's why employee ID is defined as primary key. So combination of employee ID and employee name can be used as a super key, right? There can be different employee name, same employee name with different employee ID. Now let's see alternate key. So it's a candidate key which is currently not selected as a primary key. These are also called secondary keys. Okay, so let's see an example. In this merchants table, merchant ID, registration number and SSN columns are candidate keys. Okay, so merchant ID column is already defined as a primary key. So here registration number and SSN, which is not selected as a primary key, are example of alternate keys. Okay, so those are reserved. Now let's see foreign key. Okay, so it is a column in a table that is used as primary key in another table. So here we need two tables, and it can have multiple nulls and duplicate values. Okay, so here we will be creating two tables. One is department and one is employee. Okay, so here you can see in the first table we have added one constraint that name is department underscore pk, and we have used department ID as primary key. And in the second table, that is employee table, you can see we have defined constraint employee underscore pk. So we used employee ID as primary key, and we have another constraint department underscore fk, that is your foreign key. So here we are using department ID as foreign key, and it is referring to department table. So that's why we have used references department ID. Okay, so let's create these tables in Toad. So we have created department table. Okay, so if you do a describe of department, you can see the structure. There you can see department ID column is primary key. Okay, and if you go to constraints, you can see department ID. Okay, and in referential there is nothing. Now let's create another table employee. Okay, so we will execute this DDL. Okay, so table is created. Now we will do describe employee table. Okay, okay, so here you can see the columns. Okay, so employee ID is your primary key, and if you go to constraints, you can see department ID. Okay, and if you go to referential, then you can see department underscore fk is your foreign key name, and your column is department ID, and it is referring to department table. So that is your parent table. Okay, so by this way we can create foreign key in SQL. So thank you for watching, and please subscribe for more informative sessions. Okay, thank you, bye.